You're listening to Read the Damn Book podcast, and this is episode number 2. Welcome to Read the Damn Book podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, where I read every book of every author that I interview on this show. This is a spinoff of the Webby-nominated My Simplified Life podcast, where we go behind the scenes. I don't just want to hear about the book. I want to hear about the author, the human being behind the words that we all fall in love with. Here, you're going to hear directly from the authors what their journey through life has been like, their journey through writing their book, and some behind the scenes on every book. So let's get started and read the damn book. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and today we are going all White Lotus. What does that mean? It means that I have Cleyvis Natera, author of the Grand Paloma Resort on, and her book is so White Lotus. I am a big fan of the show. I love resorts. I love getting into wealthy people's adventures. And I love a great book that it takes us away onto a beach. This book is so incredible, but even more so is Cleyvis and her journey from the Dominican Republic to America and much more. Hi, Cleyvis.
Hi, Michelle.
I love your smile. You like radiate happiness. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. And I love this book so much. I can't get over it. I'm like, oh my God, it's a book. It's about to be out in the world. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for reading and for having me.
When this airs, it will be in the world. This will be your pub day. So happy pub day.
Thank you. We made
it. Can you introduce yourself to everyone before we go down the fun path that I can tell we're about to go down?
Yes. My name is Cleyvis Natera. I am a writer. I am just about to publish my second book, The Grand Paloma Resort. My first novel was Neruda on the Park, which came out 3 years ago. I think it's important for people to know that I actually was born in the Dominican Republic, where this book takes place. And that I emigrated to the United States when I was 10 years old. I now live in New Jersey with my own family. I'm married and I have 2 young kids.
There's so much I want to talk about. I love the book, The Grand Paloma Resort. It was pitched to me as a White Lotus, and I know that that's what all the reviews are. And I'm a White Lotus diehard fan.
You and me both, okay? I mean, just recently.
Because I wanted to talk about this.
Well, somebody recently was like, does it annoy you that people keep comparing it? And I'm like, are you kidding me? I love that show. I'm here for the White Lotus. I'm one of those people who, if they released all of these episodes, I would get no sleep and just watch them all. You know? So.
Yeah. So this could literally be their next season.
I mean, from your mouth to God's ear. I mean, is there anyone out there from the White Lotus? Please.
There has to be. I mean, it's being compared everywhere. So why not just look, we are literally handing you the script. It's that easy. Just make the movie.
I just want everyone to know that I'm very easy to work with.
I like that you added to work with. You added to work with after that. I'm very glad.
Whatever it takes to sell books, Michelle, let me tell you.
Oh, I know it's hard. It is hard. Let's give everyone a synopsis of the book because it takes place in the DR. It's at a very wealthy resort. It's White Lotus. So for those who haven't seen White Lotus, we're talking luxury, lots of money, and then something always happens.
Yes.
Someone always dies.
The Grand Paloma Resort takes place in the Dominican Republic. It is a book that happens over the course of 7 days because that was very important to me to follow that pattern of you are on vacation when you're reading this book. And it's centrally concerned with 2 sisters, Laura and Elena. Laura is a manager at this resort. She's a local woman who has had to work very, very hard to get to where she is professionally. And she has taken care of her sister. They lost their mother when they were very young, and she's taking a parenting role because their father, did not have his act together. And so the story is really concerned with what happens when Laura decides that she needs her little sister to grow up, and she pretends that an act of neglect was fatal. And then it just kind of snowballs into this week of just chaos.
I felt like going into it, I'm like, "Oh, Laura, the big sister, she's so wonderful." And then all of a sudden I was like, "I hate you. Like, I do not like you, Laura. You are nasty."
Laura has a lot of problems. I have to tell you, for me, it was so difficult because I am not someone who likes unlikable characters. Like, I'm not someone as a reader who enjoys reading people who are terrible. And yet, it was so delicious to write Laura because, like every terrible decision this woman makes is rooted in love. I mean, she really loves her sister. She has a very complicated relationship with her birthplace, which happens to be my birthplace. And so for me, it was just so fascinating to write a story with like a protagonist who I would not want to go out and have drinks with Laura. I would not want to hang out with her at the resort bar. Okay. Like, she's a mess.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. The sisters that we meet towards the middle and the
Oh,
end,
the
and
Vargas. The Vargas
yes, the
sisters.
Vargas sisters. I think I want to hang out with them.
Yes, I would like to be on retirement with these two women. They're billionaires. They have all this money. They like to drink all the champagne in the world, and they are not there for like the touristy spots. They're just there
Yeah.
for the bar and the sunsets.
Those are my people.
Our people.
How did you come up with this plot? Was it from watching White Lotus, or did this stem from something else?
Oh my goodness. First of all, let me tell you the whole story, because I had this existential crisis when the White Lotus came out. I started writing this book in 2020 during the pandemic. We were all on lockdown. And when I found out that all the borders were closed in the United States, that you could not leave the country or get on a plane, the first thing I felt was like this terrible longing for my birthplace. And at the time, I had been one of my writer friends had asked me if I had anything, because she was guest editing a journal, a literary journal. And she was like, "Do you have anything?" And I was like, you know what? I had been thinking for years about writing, a collection of short stories about employees at a resort. I travel a lot. I love staying at really nice places, Michelle. I like the luxury places. And so, I had always been very, very fascinated with the service industry. And especially as a woman of color, I'm Latina, I'm a Black woman. And anywhere I travel, I feel like I become very, people always confuse me with the help. Anywhere I go, everywhere I go. And so for me, it's always been really interesting, like, because that also means that I often, even when I've traveled to Asia or Europe, it usually means that I have like an entryway to talking to people who are in the service jobs. And I've always been really fascinated with service and with luxury spaces. I'm really concerned as a person with class and privilege. And so for me, I just, during those months of like lockdown, I was just like, oh, I really want to explore this. And so I started writing these stories about, I started out actually with Vida and Pablo. Those were the first two characters that I wrote about. And then inevitably, the two sisters really took over the story, because I felt like their dynamic was just combustible. I felt like they had such a charged relationship. And so, that for me, like the first point of entry, I think, was a longing for my own country. And then the second point of entry was just really thinking about this obsession I have with class and privilege. So when the White Lotus came out, like 2 years later, I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like, oh my God, they stole my idea. And I remember talking to one of my friends who's a writer, and we happened to be at this book festival. And my friend, Xochitl Gonzalez, you might know her, Olga Dies Dreaming, and Anita Del Monte, Loves Last. Anyway, she's a fantastic writer. So we happened to be at a writer's conference. And I was talking to her about this book and how pissed I was. And then one of our other friends, who's an editor, was like, "Are you crazy? You better send these stories to your agent yesterday." Because, I mean, it's so rare to have a writer who's actually writing into a moment, like a cultural moment, like the White Lotus. And, the first season was crazy, huge. And the second season was crazy and huge. And so, when I sent it to my agent was like, "Let's go." So it was my first book. It took me like 15 years to get that book from the first sentence to publication. And with the second book, I think that because of the White Lotus, we were able to sell it pretty quickly before I even finished writing the whole book.
That's amazing. And I feel like we're not going to give a spoiler of the end, but I feel like you've opened yourself up for the possibility of a sequel.
Absolutely a sequel, but also like I'm more interested, honestly. I don't know that I'm as interested in writing these characters immediately. Like I'm more interested in writing about more hotels and more people and more women because, you know, part of the reason why I came up with this idea about Paloma Enterprises, and you learn pretty quickly once you start reading the book that this is a conglomerate. They have hotels all over the world. And part of the reason that I did that is because I definitely feel like I could keep writing these books for the rest of my life. They're so much fun to write. I feel like I want to provide readers with an escape, you know, and I think it's possible to write a book that's fast paced, that's beautiful and moving, but that it's also like has a little bit of an edge, you know?
Yes. And you did it. You did it perfectly. And I felt like we were away, you know, on the beach and yet scared of what was happening to certain characters. And yes, it was like all of it. I loved it. I want to talk about your childhood and growing up and then immigrating to the US. Can you take us on that journey and what that was like?
Yeah, I mean, unlike the people in the Grand Paloma Resort, I did not grow up with a lot of luxury. I mean, I grew up in the Dominican Republic. I'm from the south of the island, San Cristobal. My family, you know, my grandparents they've since passed away, but they owned farmland, and so we were very fortunate because we never had as much difficulties as other people, you know, who didn't have like land owning family. But it was still pretty difficult. I mean, my mom used to work in a coconut factory when I was a child, and my father was retired. He was much older than my mother, but he had worked, you know, various different jobs. So, you know, I grew up in a pretty, I would say, like a working class, a poor working class family in the Dominican Republic up until my mother traveled to the United States. My uncle was the first one who traveled to the US in the late 1960s, early 70s. And from there, like he started he requested my grandparents and then my grandparents who had 12 children. They asked for all of my aunts and uncle to travel to the United States. My mom was the oldest child, so she actually ended up traveling last from the whole group. And so by the time my mom traveled to the United States, I was 7 years old. And you know, the few years, because by the time I was 10, we traveled to the United States, but those 3 years were so radically different, Michelle, because all of a sudden we moved to a bigger house. We had a maid that like cooked for us and cleaned for us. And so like our lives changed really quickly, really fast. And then, you know, about 3 years later after she left, she brought me and my three siblings to the United States. And at the beginning, she didn't have an apartment for us to all live together. So we had to be split up. So me and my siblings, me and my older sister was with my grandparents. And then my younger sister and my brother who's in the middle with me, we're four. The two of them ended up with other aunts and uncles. So, you know, the first few months we were split up. We were in different families' apartments. And then before the school year started, we were all able to move together to an apartment in the Bronx. And so that, I mean, the transition was pretty rough. My father stayed in the Dominican Republic. He, you know, him and my mother had split up a long time before. And so it was a pretty rough transition. But once we got together, back together and lived together in the Bronx, it was much better. And that was when I started sixth grade.
I'm so amazed, and I love. Thank you for sharing your story because I want more people to understand what a tough decision that is to immigrate into the United States, to be apart from your family, to then bring your family if you're able to, but then you don't all get to live under one roof and you have to continue working to get to that point. It's not like you just come over and life's all hunky dory and everything is
No.
perfect. It's a struggle, and for people to want to come here and live here, there's a lot of sacrifice that's involved, and I don't think that everyone understands that. And your
Uh,
family went through that.
I agree with you. I mean, I think, especially these days where I feel like in the United States, it's really disheartening to see like the anti-immigrant sentiment, and just the waves and waves of deportations. And, I understand that it's a complex issue for some people because there are some folks that just resent the idea that like immigrants are taking the jobs and that immigrants are doing all these things. And so it's so interesting. I happened to moderate a conversation with Isabel Allende a few months ago when her new book came out. I live in Montclair, New Jersey, and I was fortunate enough to be chosen to moderate her conversation. And one of the things that she was talking about as she was talking about her new book, My Name is Emilia del Valle, was that, we really need to be very discerning about the idea that just because there are a handful of immigrants who have acted in a way that none of us would condone, that doesn't really mean that all immigrants need to be kicked out, right? And so for me, I mean, I arrived when I was 10 years old. I've done all my studies here. I went to college here. I went to graduate school here. My children are American, right? I married an American guy who doesn't even speak Spanish. I'm like, what happened? He told me he was gonna do Rosetta Stone, Michelle. I got tricked. But I'm a US citizen. So it's really kind of wild to me that often when I say to people I'm an immigrant, people are like, no, you're not an immigrant. Actually, you're American. And I'm like, no, I was born in another country. The United States is my home, but I am an immigrant. I'm from somewhere else too. And so it just seems kind of bizarre to me that we're in this place as a country because I just cannot say enough what a privilege it is for those of us who have made the United States home. It's a privilege for us, but it's also a privilege for this country because we work hard, we bring, our labor and our love to this country. And I really, part of like what I hope happens as we talk about borders and as we talk about even tourism, right, is this idea of privilege and like the fact that there are some people that get to travel freely and go wherever they want. And then there are some people that have a very difficult time making any place a home, right? Even if it's just to enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Americans are forgetting how we've all come here. Like, many have not been here for generations. My mother was born in Switzerland, so
Mm.
she was an immigrant. My neighbors have immigrated here. Like, there aren't that many that can say, "Oh, for generations and generations and generations, we've lived here," and you haven't. That I think that's what makes America America, is that we are a land of immigrants, you know, pretty fresh, that people forget.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I mean, all the time. And I think it's so interesting. I mean, for me, it's also this idea because I really do feel like part of the reason that I was so fascinated with some of the ideas in the book is because I've been thinking about these things and super aware of it, because coming from a place like the Dominican Republic where we have a very complicated relationship with our neighbor, right? Haiti is in the same island as Dominican Republic Hispaniola. And a lot of people might not be aware of it, but there is a humanitarian crisis going on right now in Haiti. I mean, the crime is terrible. The government was overthrown a few years ago. And so it's been a very, very difficult place. And there's a lot of pressure of like the immigrants coming from the Haitian side of the island into the Dominican side of the island. And so it's just for me has been really fascinating because in the Dominican Republic, we are a privileged class, right? Being Dominican. And then when you come to the United States, you become very aware that like being an immigrant is not being an upper class, right? And especially the kind of immigrant you are, because as you said, if you're coming from Europe, if you're a white person, you have a tendency to like kind of slip into like the upper class in the United States just by virtue of your skin color. And then there are people, right? Generations of people who have lived in the United States who just are still not considered American, like we're talking about before. So for me, those are some of the concerns too, and the ideas that animated the plot of this book, because I was just so fascinated too by the idea that the wealthier you get, I mean, even though I arrived in this country working poor, because of the opportunities in the United States, I'm now a very different class, right? And so I do get to travel the world and I get to experience all these amazing things. And so I think once you you have freedom of movement in the world, you also realize the complexities of wealth and privilege and the complexities of movement and who gets that privilege, who gets to go wherever they want. Those are some of the things I was thinking about as well.
And you gave me a heart attack in the book when the passports get taken away too. I'm like, whoa, what? Because that is that freedom of movement that even for a brief moment, if mine was taken, I'd be like, ah.
Well, I was thinking a lot, Michelle, when I went to graduate school, I went to NYU. I was trained as a literary writer. And so literary fiction tends to be very slow moving. And, I still to this day think part of the reason why I had such a hard time selling my first book is because I really didn't understand plot. Like, oh, people should want to keep reading. Like I was like, wait, are we more concerned with beautiful language or are we actually concerned with people reading the whole book? And so, I feel like it took me a really long time to understand that part of what I love about reading, as a reader is like, yeah, all this like fast movement and like this idea of like wanting to get to the end to see what happens. I love when I am invested in characters, even if they behave badly. I mean, part of what I really wanted to do with these two women is that even as we witness them doing unforgivable things, we feel deeply for them. And so when Elena, ends up traveling and, there is a moment where like, we don't know what's going to happen with her. We don't know what's going to happen if somebody has stolen her passport. And so for me, like some of it was like the intricate weaving of like these stories and like the concern that we should have for a reader. And I had so much fun doing it. I was like, I just want the reader to, I thought a lot, Michelle, about how like, if your job is to be a reader, and this book is fundamentally concerned with work. I mean, it is a workbook. And so for me, it's like, if your job is a reader, I just don't want you to be able to like stop doing the work of a reader. Just like, a lot of the people, these employees that are, the spine of this book, they don't stop working, right? I mean, you have Laura, who pretty much for the entire 7 days does not stop working. And so I
Right.
wanted the reader to have that same kind of like, you buckle in for this adventure, you're going to have a hard time putting the book down.
I love that. And her hair drove me nuts.
What was your experience? I'm very curious. What was your
Uh,
experience?
well, every time she's itching it, and she's like, I gotta. There's a kink in this, and like I gotta redo this. I'm like, girl, why? Like, this is too much effort and work for you. Please. Every time you're like, she's itching her hair. I'm like, stop itching your hair.
Well, I think it's important for everyone to understand that Laura has hair extensions. And that these are hair extensions that have been woven into her hair. And for anybody who has ever worn hair extensions, they are horrible. Okay. Like I have done it. I still do it on occasion because I like the look. And it's absolutely terrible. But part of what I wanted to explore too with that is just the fact that she is like an Afro Latina. And in a lot of these workspaces, I mean, it is so important to have straight hair. And when your hair doesn't naturally grow straight out of your hair, that's like what a lot of women do, because it's like there's a pressure to be presentable, there's a pressure to look a certain way. And so yeah, I wanted her hair to like be this phenomenon in the book
It
that you
was a
could
thing.
you could track.
It was a thing.
It's like, every time that I could be thinking about like what is it that it's like a very different experience being like a woman of color in the workplace, right? And so anything that I could do to really bring that to life, the way that you can just be competent, because we know she's competent. We know she's like a workaholic. But it's like that's not good enough. You also have to be hyper aware of like your presentation, like how do you present? And the fact that the hair just does not want to help her. It's like it kinks up, it's itchy, is terrible. And she's been ripped off too. I think it's important to know that she bought that hair because she thought it was Rihanna's hair. It's not.
It is
Spoiler
definitely not.
alert. Spoiler
Yeah.
alert. It's not
Yeah.
Rihanna's hair.
I love how you bring the history of this island, and I don't know how much of it is factual because I didn't do my research, but on that part, I read the book, but the history of the people and the culture
Yeah,
that we're
it's
reading
all
about,
research that I did. Yeah.
it's really incredible to and again, we can't give the spoilers away because y'all got to go read the book to find out what the real history of these people are, but that it comes out in this way, and that, you have these elders living at the top of this mountain, and then you have all of the employees who are at the bottom of the mountain who are living in these little huts. But then we also have the other resort on the other side of the island, and they're living just fine. If they're an employee, they're living as if they stay at the hotel.
Yes, yes. I mean, one of the things that I really wanted to play with is this idea of like privilege again, and also, anytime that I've gone to resorts, I'm fascinated when like I see a sign that says do not enter staff quarters. I'm always like, what's going on there? I'm always like looking through like a little people to be like, how do they live, so part of what I did in preparation for writing this book was to interview a lot of people that worked at resorts, because I myself have never worked in resorts. I've never worked in hospitality. And so, I interview people that were like in the management level. I interview a lot of, workers at hotels. And like some of this happened years before I even started writing this book, because like I said, I've always been really fascinated with people that work in resorts and hotels. And because they always have the best stories. I mean, Michelle, I'm going to have to take you out for a drink so I can tell you what inspires some of these scenes, because the scandalo that I heard out in the streets about some of the ways that people behave, like rich people are crazy. Okay. And
that's in the book, everybody. There are some crazy rich people who do whatever they want.
That's so crazy stuff. But I also, part of like what I also wanted to imagine. So like there's like the research that hopefully will animate the book, and historical research was also really important to me because I wanted to add things that people might not know. Even Dominican people might not know about the Dominican Republic. And so, I'm fortunate that I've always been fascinated by history, and I read a lot other books that inspired me. Usually have a connection to history. So I love fiction that does that. But especially fiction that doesn't do it with a heavy hand. Because for me, like part of what I think is really important in the days when like the White Lotus and like, all these other shows have completely taken over entertainment. So I spend a lot of time thinking about how can we as fiction writers compete? And I think like the way that we compete is that we give a really rich experience. And so for me, that's part of what I wanted to do. And so when I thought about like what would make things really interesting is if you had two hotels by the same conglomerate, and in one hotel, people were, there's this kind of facade of like, they do not allow sex work in the Grand Paloma Resort. It's like a very high end, incredible place. And then they have the sister hotel that's like not by the beach. It's kind of like in a forested area. And, they have an adults only place, and like, it's kind of sexy. But guess what? Like the employees live so much better. They have AC. They have like rooms that look exactly like, the places where the guests would stay.
What does this tell us?
I feel like I want the reader to really think about hotels. I'm like, I want everybody to be as obsessed with like hospitality or hotels as I am. Because everywhere I go, I'm always kind of paying attention. If you ever have to, one of the things that happened to me is that my husband and I got married in the Dominican Republic. And when we went to visit some resorts that we're thinking about, we went to like this very beautiful resort. And because I'm Dominican, I was speaking in Spanish when we got to the front, and we had an appointment with like, the manager who was in charge of, weddings. And because my husband is African American and I obviously am a dark skinned Dominican, they took us to the service. Instead of taking us where they should have taken us as tourists who were about to get married in this place, they took us to a staff entrance. They thought that we were laborers, And so for me, it was very interesting because like even that, and this happened, 15 years ago, maybe no, 16 years ago. And it was like a wild experience to me. Just even the mistake, which was totally race, and then the fact that like the part where we took, all of a sudden the resort wasn't so nice. you know? And so those are some of the experiences that for me have really like animated my imagination about the stark differences that exist in some of these beautiful places. And how if you are a staff, let me tell you, you are not having the kind of luxury experience that the guests are having.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in business. Just
True.
wouldn't. And I feel like we need Palomas. That's what we need to go out for.
Well, the drink of the summer is the
Yes.
Paloma.
The Palomas. It's so good. You have to say it twice.
It's so good. They put extra Paloma in the Paloma. I've been drinking too many Palomas, Michelle. My husband was like, really? I feel like you're overdoing it. I was like, you got to roll with me on this, Kevin.
There's no such thing. Tell your husband there is no such thing, especially when you were launching a book called The Grand Paloma Resort and they drink Palomas. You must be in the book. It's just how it goes.
I mean, I'm just in the mood for Palomas all the time now. That's all I do.
I love it. After this, I'm going to go sit by the pool and maybe I can concoct a Paloma or something.
I found some canned ones that are very delicious.
I found some at Costco.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I'll send you a picture too. I have to go back tomorrow. So I'll text you a picture. Yeah. I love the book. I love you. I think you are just, I want to have drinks with you. That's the type of person you are.
You know, I mean, thank you for saying that because part of my goal as I'm doing like, pre-pub interviews is that I just want to make sure people know I'm not Laura. Okay. Like you do want to hang out with me. You do want to have a drink with me. Come see me on book tour. I promise I'm a lot of fun.
We can tell. And you're not Miranda. We didn't even talk about Miranda, but you're not Miranda either.
I love Miranda. You didn't like Miranda?
It's a love. She was okay. But there are parts of her that I'm like, no.
I mean, she's just like a senior executive of the hotel. I mean, she is her job. So I agree with you. She's a complicated woman.
Yeah. She's very much like Devil Wears Prada. Just reminds me, I'm like, your name is Miranda. Like it fits. That is you. You're the boss lady.
Listen, I mean, I was thinking a lot about Miranda from Sex and the City, actually, when I was thinking about this character, because I loved Miranda, but I felt like Miranda was a difficult person to love.
I like it. See, it's the name.
It's the name. Yeah,
it's the name.
But I like your connection to Devil Wears Prada more, actually, because I think that is more in line with who that character is.
Yeah, not as cold, but yes, very similar.
Yes.
I love it.
Well,
Cleyvis, where can everyone find you and buy your book and find you on book tour?
Yes. I mean, first of all, I just want to say thank you, Michelle, for reading this book. And
thank you.
I mean, I really love listening to your podcast. I love being a guest in it. I am most active on Instagram, so people can find me at Cleyvis Natera on Insta. And I'm planning to do a lot of posts during the book tour. So I hope that people will follow me there. I tend to post a lot of like my next upcoming appearances on Instagram, so it's easy to find information there. There's a link tree with all the links into my website, so cleyvisnatera.com. I have an events tab, and people can just find it. It's very easy to buy the Grand Paloma Resort because it's being sold everywhere. So please buy it. It's very important. Those of us who are trying to keep writing books, I just really hope people like this book. I worked really hard, and I hope that people enjoy it as much as I enjoyed writing it.
They will. And if you like White Lotus, you will love the Grand Paloma Resort. Enough said. Like, go buy the book. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had a blast. And we're going to meet for Palomas. I'm very sorry for the listeners that will not be there with us.
It's still August, which means it is still beachside reading time. Get yourself the Grand Paloma Resort because Cleyvis will make sure that you get that escape that you need. For some of us, school has already started, so having that escape is more than welcome. You're not only going to get a great escape read, but you're also going to learn about the culture and history of the Dominican Republic and so much more. So it is a win-win on all levels. Go and read the damn book.